Hi, this is Megan with Beadaholique, and today I'm going to show you how to use a BeadlePoint stitchable iPhone case. And it's going to come in a package like this, and they come in quite a few different colors, and they look like this, and they're flexible, and they have a mesh on them. And what you can do is, just like needlepoint, which is done with a yarn on canvas, you can stitch onto these, but in this one, in BeadlePoint, you're going to use a bead in each stitch, and it's going to end up, you can see on the back here that it's completely stitched in. This does take a long time. I'll give you that warning ahead of time. It is quite an undertaking, but it gives you this really nice, intricate, amazing texture and really fun look to it. So we do have a pattern booklet that is going to come already with all the patterns in it. Mine's been kind of cut up, so yours will be not in pieces like mine will. But as you can see, this is what one of the patterns look like. So you can kind of choose if you want to choose similar colors to the ones they've used, or if you want to change the colors to different ones. I've followed in the pattern booklet the Rockstar pattern, except that theirs calls for black, lavender, and white, and I've used kind of a turquoise, darker purple, and a white. And I chose a turquoise phone case with beads to match because I really liked the way it looked when the beads blended into the case. What we're going to need, you're going to need 15-0 seed beads. Don't use a 15-0 cylinder bead like a Delica. Those are a different size. You need a 15-0 seed bead. I'm using Toho's for this. And you'll need a beading needle. I have a size 12. You want a smaller size to go through the small seed beads. And then on mine here, I've used FireLine beading thread. It's very strong, so it's going to be durable, but it's really thin and it's very hard to see, so it kind of disappears in here. For the purposes of being able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to use a thicker beading thread just for the demonstration. So that's why I'm not using FireLine for this. But if you're worried about the strength, you can use a thicker one like Wildfire. Just be aware that it will show up a little bit more. And again, I'm going for contrast here so that you can see what I'm doing. So you can follow a pattern from the book like I did here. We do sell this book also, so you could pick up the book and follow a pattern. Inside the package, there's also a couple of patterns included. So you can see this cute little owl, and this one here has the hearts on it. So you could follow those patterns, or you could make it up as you go. I'm not going to really go into patterns on this. I'm just going to show you how it works. So what you'll want to do is start the way that this works, and I'll show you this diagram actually. This is a really good diagram. So you can see on their diagram, they show you 4 holes, and you're going to stitch from the bottom the bottom left to the top right. And then you'll go down 1, and that's your new bottom left to the top right. And you're going to go across your whole first row that way. So you need to choose the second row down, your first hole. And a lot of this is going to be about getting your needle up through the right hole. I just flip it over and make sure you're in the right spot. Now when you're starting a new thread, you're going to pull it almost all the way, give yourself about an inch long tail, and hold that in place with your finger. Pick up 1 bead, and now you're going to go up 1 and 1 to the right. So you're going to catch that crossed bridge between the holes and go diagonally up and over to the right. And then pull. And don't pull so hard that you lose grip on that thread right there. Just going to pull it snug. And now on the back, pull your tail over to the left and bring your needle down 1 hole. And you want to make sure you catch the tail when you pull that tight. And again, you're going to pick up one bead and you're going to go up one and over one to the right at a diagonal. Pull that snug. Go down one hole, make sure you catch your tail. You're going to catch your tail all the way across. You can see on mine here, I have all of my little tails woven in and they go in all the way across. So you'll want to make sure you're weaving in from 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And you're going to continue all the way across. You'll notice that the beads don't necessarily line up perfectly straight, and this is something to consider when you're choosing a pattern. On this one here, you'll notice that the curved lines, the lines at an angle, aren't necessarily completely uniform and straight, and that's just the nature of the beads and the way that they sit on the holes. So you're not going to get a really crisp stripe, or maybe if you just do horizontal stripes you will, but not a diagonal or a chevron or a plaid or something like that. So it does give it a little bit more of an abstract feel to it, and it can work. It's just not going to be very crisp and exact. So just keep that in mind as you're working. You do the whole thing one bead at a time. So just catch your tail, go down one bead, up and over to the right, pull it snug, move down one hole, pick up one bead, up and over to the right, and you're just going to continue all the way to the end of the row. Now I'm just going to show you now how to turn, because you really don't want to watch me do this for rows at a time, trust me. So I'm just going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to show you how you turn to go down the next row and how you're going to finish your thread also when you need to tie off and add a new piece of thread, which you will do, as you can see from this one, many times. Have a new piece of thread about once every 3/8 of an inch. And before you ask me how long that one took, I really couldn't tell you. I worked on it at work off and on for several weeks, so hours and hours depending on how fast you work on it. But it does give a really cool finished look to it, and it should be pretty durable. It should last. Okay, now I'm just going to show you how to turn. You will go, when you start, you're going to start at the top left, work all the way to the end until you can't go into another hole, and then you're going to just work back and forth. You're going to go left to right, down one, right to left, down one, left to right, and just keep going throughout the whole piece. So when you get to the end of the row, and again I'm abbreviating here because that's just a lot of watching me do exactly the same thing. When you get to the end of the row, you'll go down just like normal, just like if you're going to take another stitch, but this time instead of working that way, because there's no more holes that way, you're going to go backwards. So your even numbered rows are going to go down into the left one instead of up into the right. So you're just going to go exactly the opposite of what you were doing before, and on the back side you'll go up a hole, pick up one bead, down one and to the left one, and up one hole. Oops. And this is something you want to be careful about. Make sure you don't catch the stitch before when you're bringing your needle up. Just be aware of that. Pick up a bead, down into the left one, up one hole, one bead, down and to the left. And you see I'm using my thumbnail to kind of line them up. After I do a few stitches, I kind of put them in line. Up, and going through that stitch again. Up one, grab a bead, and you'll go down into the left, up one, down and to the left. I'm just going to show you one more row change. Now I've got one more little tiny half a hole there. If you can see through it, you can stitch through it. So it will look nice if you get them all the way up to the edge. All right, so now I've worked to the end of the row. And on this one, it's gonna be kind of a curved line. So usually you would go down one, but I can't go down one because there's not a hole right here. So you're just gonna go into the next row to the first hole, as close as you can to down one. And sometimes, like when you get to where it goes out a lot over here, what you're gonna do is you're actually just going to skip over with your thread to the first hole when you're gonna start that row. And then you'll just wanna catch that thread. You can see I don't know if you probably can't see that, but there's a little bit of thread right here, and I've just caught it in some of the stitches. You want to make sure there's not loose threads hanging up off the back. And then this is an odd numbered row, so on the odd number rows you'll go from the bottom left to the top right, just like you did for row 1, and your row 3 will be just like that, and you'll go down one at the back. I'm going to do a few stitches, and then I'm going to show you how to tie off your thread. And you'll want to tie off your thread closer to the center of a row, and you'll want to make sure that you don't work yourself too far onto your thread. Go ahead and stop when you have about 6 inches left on your needle. So you don't want to get too close and not be able to properly tie it off. It actually doesn't get tied, it just gets woven in. So again, this is an odd row. I'm going up and to the right and then down one. For the even rows, you're going down and to the left and then up one on the back. So you get the hang of it, and you can kind of do it in your sleep, which is good because it takes a long time. All right, I'm just going to do one more, and so that way you can kind of see. Once you get them lined up, that's about a little 1/2 inch patch there. Now on the back, the reason you want to keep it to the middle when you're going to finish off is so that you can fit your needle in. What you're going to do is take your needle and carefully just run it under several of the stitches, and you want to catch it under a healthy number of stitches. You don't need to go across the whole row, but you want to catch it in at least about 5 or 6 stitches, and then pull snug. And then trim that off. And you would just start your new thread the exact same way that you started your first thread, by holding the tail and stitching over the tail. So when you're following a pattern, you'll do exactly the same way. You're just going to start at the top left of the pattern and just follow the different colors for the different colors. And again, you can choose a different color for each color on the pattern. You could even make yourself a little note as to what color you're using instead, and make it really easy to follow. And that's how you do BeadlePoint for the BeadlePoint Stitchable phone case.